Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. In the last part, we took care of some business here in Cerulean City, fixing up the magnet train in the process by completing the power plant side quest. And we also beat Misty at her gym, but now that we've done that, because of the order I've done operations here in Kanto, there's something else waiting for us when we initially met Misty here by Bill's house. So let's see what's going on over here. We go. Been a little bit again. Oh, I am no match for you. As I predicted. Go ahead. Since I met you in the burn tower at Pewter City, I've sort of known that Suicune wouldn't choose you. Take a look at it. Suicune is waiting for you. It has been waiting for a battle with a worthy trainer to whom it can entrust itself. It's about time we finally got to catch this one. I love Suicune's battle theme. All three of the legendary beasts have a version of this song that's more instrumented to their specific typing, and Suicune's is easy record. I love the guitar on this. Either way, Suicune, notably in a different location this time around than in the original Crystal. Over in Crystal, you caught this thing over near the Tin Tower in Ep.28, whereas in Gold and Silver it was another roaming. Suicune is a pure water type, meaning is weak to grass and electric exclusively. This is, out of the three legendary beasts of Johto, the most defensively minded from memory. High defense, high special defense, high HP as well. But being a legendary, all of its stats are still pretty good. Definitely more of a trending towards special attack than attack, but that's because water type. It's also decently fast, all things considered. You could do a lot worse for water types, that's for certain. But, in fact, you could do a lot worse because legendaries are almost always statistically the best Pokemon. The main reason I'm not going to use them is my usual rule about legendaries. With that said, main strategy here for this particular fight, do what you can to inflict any kind of status ailment on them, and then just hope that the Ultra Balls decide to catch it. I actually bought some more Ultra Balls off screen right next to Cerulean Gym, as I knew I was going to need these for this. Looking back though, Suicune's a bit of a weird case of a legendary with how it's been focused on. Because while it's gotten some notable roles in some episodes of the anime and some of the movies even, I've always found it weird that it was the Pokemon they focused on for Crystal. Like, the main reason we have all this focus here in Heart Gold Soul Silver is because of it being the focus in Crystal. But why Suicune over Entei or Raikou, for instance? What especially makes that whole situation stand out too is that Generation 2 is the only generation that used legendaries as the box art that didn't have a third main legendary to focus on off the bat. Because, like, we got Ho-Oh and Lugia on Gold and Silver, and same with Heart Gold Soul Silver. But starting from Gen 3, they always tended to design their legendaries in trios. And they even were doing that in Gen 1 and 2 to an extent, because we got the three legendary beasts of Johto, we got the three legendary birds of Kanto. Ho-Oh and Lugia really are kind of a standout in that regard, huh? Because even once they stopped doing third versions with Gen 5, they still had the third legendary, because, like, there's Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem. There's Yveltal, Xerneas, and Zygarde. That's the name of that one. Gen 7 and 8 are the ones that kind of went backwards on that now that I think about it, because Gen 7, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon exist, and that's sort of a third version, and because of that they focus on Necrozma a lot, and Necrozma just kind of showed up randomly in an area in the original Sun and Moon. Gen 8 was a bit of a weird one in that regard, but I guess you can say the third legendary, and that was the one from the DLC that I didn't play, and I still need to go pick that up and play it. I guess what it kind of comes down to is that Pokemon's always had a lot of weird decisions in it, as early as Gen 1 and 2. Gen 7 and 8 definitely have their weird decisions as well, but it's more weird just for the time frame of the series, I guess. Like, a big series being weird early on is how it tends to be, because they haven't figured out an identity for themselves yet. And, yeah, I guess looking back, Gen 2, half of Gen 2's identity is that Kanto is still there for you to go back to. Gen 3 was the first Pokemon game to have its own 100% identity, even with some of the old Pokemon still being there. Getting back to the game we're looking at, though, not the series as a whole, Suicune highlights a bit of a problem as well, level-wise, because you might notice most of my Pokemon by this point, because of all I've done, are around level 50-ish, somewhere about, maybe give or take a level or two in most cases. Suicune's level 40. And the main reason for that is you can technically ignore a lot of Kanto and just go wherever you want, whatever order. You can do all the Suicune cutscenes as soon as you get here, and you'll technically be on level parity for them. But that just doesn't feel good, honestly. Genuinely, and I touched on this a little bit before, I really think Kanto could have been more interesting if it had some more story beats, for one thing. But if they just force you to go certain directions more often so that they could plan around a level curve. They did try to patch it up again here in Heart Gold SoulSilver, as I mentioned, particularly for the gym leaders having level boosts, but when it even affects the legendaries that exist outside of the main level curve, it's not a good sign. Looking back, though, going back to the series in general more so, poor Raikou. Because Suicune's gotten a lot of love over the years, Entei's gotten a lot of love. From memory, all Raikou's gotten out of the three. I know I'm getting ahead of myself because we haven't actively fought Entei or Raikou yet, but I feel like this is the best time to talk about it. Raikou's gotten, like, what? An OVA of sorts, where I think there's a shiny one. A little bit of focus in some of the spin-off games like Ranger and Mystery Dungeon, but even then, comparatively, it's usually still focused on all three at once. And I think some trainer has it in Masters, but I barely play Masters. Genuinely, my most recent time booting up Masters was when they did that Giratina Cynthia. And I was like, well, that's a cool design, why not? That game just is too reliant on multiplayer for my tastes. Either way, we got Suicune. That's cool. Powerful Pokemon, like I said, I like it a lot. But since I'm not using legendaries, into the box it goes for the rest of time. Kyle, you two truly are amazing. I have never seen a battle this intense. I have no regrets. Farewell, Suicune. Farewell, Kyle. And that's it for Yucine. We never see him again from memory. I don't think you can even run into him in any place just randomly. Yucine's always been a weird character to me, because ultimately, he's just there for Suicune, has no personality of his own, has a really cool theme and design, but he doesn't get to do anything? And in a way, that's kind of a sort of a trend for Pokemon, because there's some remnants of that even in later games with certain NPCs. I'm looking at the Ultra Recon Squad in general a little bit as well, because they don't do much until the last third of that game. With that said, with Suicune caught, we're now basically done in the Cerulean area for now. I should also note, I was wrong the last part or so. You actively can't access Cerulean Cave until you beat all 8 Kanto gym leaders. So, whoops, my bad on that. So now it's time for us to head towards Pewter City, and we can only get there through Diglett's Cave. Diglett's Cave, it's got a lot of Diglets and Dugtrios. If you have Hoenn or Sinnoh Sound going, you can catch a couple of different Pokemon. I've already noted more or less what Hoenn and Sinnoh Sound can get you overall. It's pretty unremarkable, and we can't even get everything in there until we get the last HM anyway. And now we're on Route 2. We actively need Cut to get out of this little area we're in, though. So make sure you go grab that, otherwise you're not going to be able to grab, or be able to head towards either Viridian City or Pewter City. But also, we can come in here. Oh my good nuggets, you're the first visitor I've had in a long time. I'm going crazy with joy. Since you look as bright as a nugget, let me give you a little present. Free money. That's a nugget. I can't give you any nuggets of wisdom, so that'll have to do. Cool, thanks. You can actively use this route to ignore the Viridian Forest to our west, which I believe was restored here for Heart Gold and SoulSilver. Because if memory checks out completely, then I'm going to look this up just to make sure about it. By the way, you can talk to this guy and he gives you a Sacred Ash. It's a revival item that I believe is used as a held item. Or something like that. I barely use it. As I was saying, layout-wise, Viridian Forest doesn't exist as an independent area at all in the original Generation 2. They turned its layout into a maze of trees that was within the same map data as the part we're in right now. Heart Gold, SoulSilver restored it into being its own independent area, and honestly, I'm thankful for that because I've always loved Viridian Forest. I know it's the vanilla dungeon, but there's something about the music about it that's always just been super calming to me. In fact, I mentioned this, I think, at some point back during my Fire Red LP. I have distinct memories of a kid of breathing to the rhythm of the main beat of Viridian Forest when I got sick. And theoretically, breathing at that tempo is not great to make you feel better, but for some reason it did. Probably more of a psychological effect more than anything. But now it's time for us to talk about the Pokemon in Route 2. It's a lot of bug types. The entire Metapod line, the entire Weedle line, Pidgeys, Hoothoots, Noctowls. You can find Ladybuzz here in SoulSilver, same with Ladians. Which those are kind of hard to come by, so why not? But we got 2 new Pokemon with this Pokemon trainer. First off is Burmy, a Generation 4 bug type. Being pure bug, it's weak to flying, rock, and fire. Burmy doesn't got a lot in stats. It's an early game bug, all things considered. The most interesting thing about Burmy is its evolution is multi-typed in a way of, depending on where you are, where you catch it, it'll be either bug grass, bug ground, or bug steel. Which means you can get some pretty cool things out of that. With that said, the overall stats of that Pokemon are relatively defensive-based. One form is definitively more special defense, one more physical defense, the other's kind of balanced. What's not balanced, on the other hand, is Butterfree. This evolves from Metapod at level 10. I'm kind of surprised it took us this long to run into one of these. Bug flying types, it's weak to flying, rock, fire, electric, and ice. Rocks at 4 times weakness. For early game, this is a great special attacker with some good special defense as well. The big problem with Butterfree is that it's very fragile. It's good for early game if you want something that can use like psychic moves. But honestly, the best effect that Butterfree has is just being used in early game, especially in Gen 1. Gen 2 beyond, where things are laid out differently type-wise, there's probably a little better for you. For instance, the first gym in this game was flying type, and that means bug types, not exactly a good type to go for. Getting back on topic, though, welcome to Pewter City, one of my favorite Gen 1 towns, if only because there's something about this land that always felt good to me. There's a surprising amount of points of interest directly around this city, including, what's to our direct east, but we'll talk more about that throughout the later parts of the park. For now, let's talk to this guy.
You came all the way out here from Johto? That brings back memories. When I was young, I went to Johto to train. You remind me so much of what I was like as a young man. Here, I want you to have this item I found in Johto.
And here we get the Rainbow Wing. Or, if you're playing Heart Gold, you get the Silver Wing. Coming to Pewter City allows you to actively tackle the opposite versions title legendary, so we can now head over to Ecruteak and take care of business there that we couldn't before. With that said, we're not going to be doing that for a hot minute. I wait until towards endgame to do that. I think I mentioned before, I have like a giant list of like the final events I did in what order, and I think that's before the first final boss of sorts. I guess the second final boss of sorts, but it's not at like the very end of the LP. Did I make some weird pacing for the later parts of this LP? Maybe, because I try to show off as much as I can, and if I do miss things, feel free to tell me, because this game's big, me missing things isn't surprising. Now, coming up here, we're grabbing an item. This is the Wise Glasses. This is the special attack equivalent to the Macho Brace that you can get through Mom buying items for you. You've probably already gotten the Macho Brace at this point, just from the amount of money you've gotten from Pokemon battles. You give that to an item, it boosts the power of their special moves. Pretty good, pretty good. And now it's time for the museum. We no longer even need to pay to enter here like we did in the original game. The main note here is that this is where you regenerate fossil Pokemon. And you could have found fossils by this point, but the only way you can find them is by using Rock Smash in the Ruins of Alph in specific. I'll talk more about the specific Pokemon you can get by doing that down the road. Just note this is the only place you can regenerate them. Sure, you can extract Pokemon from fossils if you ever need to. Let me take care of it for you. Hey, you don't have any fossils. I heard that sometimes you find fossils when you smash rocks in the Ruins of Alph and other places. Mostly the Ruins of Alph, though. Like, you might be able to get some out of, like, Mount Moon, if even. But it's there, at least. Just like Cameron. Go away, Cameron. Cameron's photos are more or less just for showing off more than anything. I think they only get stored in the PC on top of that, so not really worth it, but at least it's there, I guess? Now, we're coming up on the gym, but I actively want to go do something else first, because I just remembered, at this point in recording, I missed an item down lower half of town. Now, Pewter Gym in general, though, I don't want to say it's the easiest gym in Kanto, but it's definitely the easiest gym to just get right to the gym leader with, because it always was. But it's where a lot of the new Pokemon for this part are as well. Pewter Gym is the one where they really feel like they actively upgraded the trainers in a way that feels satisfying compared to some of the other ones. We'll get more into that as we go here, though. Yo, legend in the making, you look really rockin'. Are you battling the gym leaders of Kanto? They're strong, dedicated people, just like Johto's gym leaders. Now, you see, I find that dialogue weird, because it makes you think you're meant to come here first and do the gyms in order. But with how you're placed in Kanto to start, that just doesn't feel good. Like, maybe in a way they maybe should have added some sort of, like, pier that you get dropped off with at Pallet Town, so you have to go through in the old order? But that also probably wouldn't have felt too good either, so there's a lot of weird choices in this section of the game, as I said before. With that said, this picnicker who once upon a time I believe just had a Geodude has an upgrade. They now got a Rhydon. This evolves from Rhyhorn at level 42. Ground rock type, so it is weak against fighting, ground, steel, water, grass, and ice. Water and grass are 4 times weaknesses. This is a great physical Pokemon. High physical attack, good physical defense, and it has access to one of the original one-hit KO moves in Horn Drill. But if you breathe on this thing with anything special, especially if it's water, you're just gonna knock it out. I've used Rhydon before plenty of times. I believe I even used one back in my Fire Red LP from memory. It's pretty good. It's just a case of you really need to keep an eye on those weaknesses, otherwise you're just doomed. Wow, it's not often we get a challenger from Johto. I'm Brock, the Pewter Gym Leader. I'm an expert on rock-type Pokemon. My Pokemon are impervious to most physical attacks. You'll have a hard time inflicting any damage. Come on! I've always loved Brock. It's mostly because of the anime, but damn it, he's just such a bro. In fact, you can't spell Brock without bro. Now, Brock to start is going to throw out his Graveler. Sturdy for its ability, so you can't use active one-hit KO moves on it. Defense Curl, Rollout, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. It's more or less just a logical conclusion to what his Geodude was back in any version of Gen 1. That said, Rock Ground type, use water on it, it's not going to last. Next up, from memory, I believe he's throwing out his Kabutops. Yes, this is a new Pokemon. Battle Armor for its ability, Endure, Giga Drain, Aqua Jet, and Rock Slide. Battle Armor blocks critical hits from happening. Kabutops is interesting. It evolves from one of the fossil Pokemon from Gen 1 at level 40. And it's a rock-water type, meaning it is weak to fighting, ground, grass, and electric. Grass is the best weakness there at a 4 times weakness. This is a fantastic physically minded Pokemon because it's got really good attack and defense, and it's decently fast as well. If my memory serves, the biggest problem with it compared to the other fossil Pokemon of Gen 1 was its learn set prior to Gen 4 wasn't too good, especially because the water type portion, you just couldn't take good advantage of it with its stats. Nowadays it's better, but I think the other fossil Pokemon from Gen 1 is the overall better choice all the same still. Next up, though, Brock is throwing out, I believe it's his Rhyhorn? Yeah, his Rhyhorn. Rockhead for its ability, Earthquake, Sandstorm, Scary Face, and Horn Drill. Beware the Horn Drill. Rockhead prevents recoil damage on the Pokemon. Not that this one has any recoil-causing moves from memory, though. Again, though, Rock Ground type. Water is your best friend. At this point, I believe he's throwing in his classic ace, his Onix. Sturdy for its ability, Screech, Sandstorm, Iron Tail, and Rock Slide. I guess it's because it's iconic, and a lot of them kept their aces all the same in the Kanto gym leaders. Like, Misty still has her Starmie, Lieutenant Sturge still has the Raichu from memory. But why not evolve it to a Steelix just to show, like, man, we got all this stuff here? Finally, though, he's sending out his Amistar. Shell armor for its abilities, so critical hits not gonna happen. Protect, Spike Cannon, Ancient Power, and Brine. Brine is a potentially dangerous Pokemon move, especially because when the HP of the Omastar is below half, its power doubles to a ridiculous extent. Omastar overall, though, is the other Gen 1 fossil Pokemon's final form at level 40. Also Rock-Water type, just like Kabutops, so it's fighting, ground, grass, and electric are its weaknesses. Grass is a 4x weakness. But this is a much more physically tanky, but special attack-oriented Pokemon, so it can actively use its water type well prior to Gen 4. Hence why I prefer it overall. Looks like you're the stronger one. I would hope so by this point. Do you see that level gap? Your Pokemon's powerful attacks overcame my rock-hard resistance. You're stronger than I expected. Go ahead, take this badge. What? No, two gym badges left in Kanto to get. I miscounted severely for a second there. I really enjoyed the battle with you, Kyle. I'll give you the move Rock Slide, too. It can sometimes cause your foes to flinch. Kind of a weird point to give you Rock Slide overall, but I guess it works. The world is huge. There's still many strong trainers like you. Just wait and see. I'm gonna become a lot stronger too. Cool. Moving on. Now that we're done with our main business in Pewter City for now, we will have to come back here for one or two things down the line. You're mainly supposed to head south towards Viridian City at this point, but I want to head east and fight the legend. Youngster, goodness how rude. Call me Shorts Boy. At least they're aware. Now, this route is interesting. There's not many super important Pokemon you can actively catch here on Route 3. It's mostly like Jigglypuffs, the Ekans line, Spearows, Rattatas. The main cool thing here is directly to our south. Because down here we got some little meteorites that have crashed down since the original Generation 1, and you can find some star pieces around here which are good for selling. But these meteorites are an adaptation of a mechanic from Generation 3 that was added into Sinnoh and they brought back into here. If you investigate any of these 4 meteorites with Deoxys in your party, which I should note, he's in my party right now, it actively changes your Deoxys' form to whichever one of you're choosing, between the balanced form or normal form, attack, defense, or speed forms. This is a notable upgrade of Deoxys from Generation 3 because in Gen 3, as I mentioned when we caught Deoxys, which form it took was entirely dependent on which GBA cartridge you currently had that Deoxys in. In Fire Red, it was always attack form. In Leaf Green, it was always defense form. In Emerald, it was always speed form. And in Ruby, Sapphire, Colosseum, and Gales of Darkness, it was always normal form. Which was severely limiting if you wanted to use one on any team, even casually. Gen 4 adding these meteorites, much needed improvement. With that said, this is the main reason I actively brought the Deoxys over from my Fire Red cartridge save file. So I'm just gonna go put them back in at this point. And now it's nighttime, because there was also a notable break there. And there's a notable break there for a reason, because I want it to be nighttime on a specific day for something I'm gonna show off next part. More on that when we actively get there, though. For now, it's just time for us to start the trek towards Mount Moon, which is pretty much the same as it was back in the original game. Speed up theme for this part, by the way, is I think Sinkin' in the Main is the name of this particular song from the original I, the Somnium files. If you guys like really well written, but at times semi-degenerately written visual novels, give that a shot. It's really good. Anything Uchikochi touches, really, be it the Zero Escape trilogy, barring maybe ZTD, and World's End Club. Generally worth your time. Haven't seen that anime he did a few years ago, though. I probably should check that out, as weird as it'll probably be. This is a route I honestly really like in Heart Gold Soul Silver, only because it's a route that is the same but has enough differences that it feels new, which is a thing I really feel, barring like the occasional HM08 usage, the area needed more of, honestly. With that said, this fire breather's got a new Pokemon for us. I know it's the last Pokemon they actively use. Coming up here is Camerupt. Generation 3 Fire Ground type, evolves from its prior evolution at level 33. Fire Ground, so it's weak against ground and water. Water is a 4 times weakness. Camerupt is a surprisingly good attacker for how slow it is. I think both of its attack stats are 100 or plus. And its HP and defenses do well enough to try and back that up, but from memory, its biggest weakness is its learn set. Isn't the greatest overall. Like, you can learn some good ground and fire moves overall. Like, I think it natively learns Earthquake by leveling up. Same with Eruption. There's just... The biggest problem with me overall is there's very few Pokemon that have a 4 times weakness to water I'm willing to use, in particular. Because 4 times weaknesses I can work with otherwise. But with how common water is as a move type and Pokemon type, you need to sell me hard on a Pokemon that can do that a lot. At least when I'm actively planning a team out, which is whenever I record the games more or less nowadays, or go back to old ones. When I'm playing a game through for the first time, I usually won't pay it as much mind because I'm trying out the Pokemon within the region. Nowadays, though, not a big Camerupt fan. Weirdly, Camerupt's a Pokemon I for some reason associate more with Gen 2 than Gen 3. Despite premiering in Gen 3, same with its pre-evolution. There's just something weirdly Gen 2 looking about Camerupt's first form that I can't quite place overall. Maybe it's the roundness of it overall. It's just kind of a weird case, because usually there's a lot of Gen 2 Pokemon I associate more with Gen 3, as I brought up before. Oh, and hey, it's been like 3 hours, so Balba's calling us again. I think this is the second to last time he's calling us. I genuinely don't remember at this point, because I've had to edit a lot of footage so far, and we still got a lot to go. If memory serves, we're on like session 15 or 16 of footage that we're editing down at this point. We got a lot to go still. The latter half of that footage is probably going to fly by relatively quickly with how much of that is me working on catching legendaries. But we'll see what happens when I get to that, honestly. If my Fire Red LP taught me anything, endgame Pokemon recordings are either just editing out a lot of 30 to 40 second battles, or cutting out like 50 minutes of trying to catch legendary Pokemon. So some of those 1.5 to 2 hour long sessions might become 20 minutes on their own. Really depends. With that said, we're getting close to Mount Moon. Which honestly is probably one of the biggest different looking areas in either version of the game. For reasons we'll get into in a few moments. Well, actually, no, not in a few moments. Next part, now that I think about it. I forgot where I actively ended this part for a second there. But first, we got one last new Pokemon to talk about. And weirdly, if memory serves, it's a Generation 2 Pokemon we haven't seen the first form of yet. Well, although I think you can run into them somewhere around the biking road, on the grass. You have to get past the cut tree for just what's to sell it on. This is Magcargo, a Generation 2 Fire and Rock type, so it is weak against fighting, ground, rock, and water. Ground and water are 4 times weaknesses. It's got a good physical defense stat overall, and some good special stats to back it up, but it's pretty slow, and its HP isn't too good to begin with. This is one of those Pokemon that got a couple of buffs, I think in Gen 6 or 7, where some of the stats were boosted by 10 or so. But overall, there's much better Pokemon to use. It's got an okay learn set, I guess, but eh. Interestingly, one of the most interesting things about it is its abilities. Magma Armor, which prevents it from being frozen, as rare as that feels like it is. But there's also Flame Body. Flame Body's interesting in that it's sort of like Poison Point, but it inflicts burns with physical attack damage. So that could be pretty useful if you just want to throw it out to try and get that to proc and have an opponent's physical attack stat. But it's just, it's not for me. It's not for me. I love the design, though. With that, though, now that we've reached Mount Moon, I'm going to need to end this off here, if memory serves, after I try and get some items that are just outside this Pokemon Center. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 29, we're going to explore what Mount Moon has to offer for us here in Heart Gold Soul Silver before heading south towards Viridian City. See you guys then.